Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, let's dive right in, because today we're tackling something every single one of us feels on a deeply visceral level, that sheer, soul-crushing exhaustion of modern workplace communication. We've all been there, right? Staring blankly at a screen just flooded with notifications. Well, we're going to unpack the hidden costs of these hyper-connected teams and look at the actual science behind how we solve complex problems together.
So let's kick things off with a slightly provocative question. Is your team communicating too much? Just think about your daily workflow for a second. We kind of operate under this foundational assumption that endless Slack notifications, Microsoft Teams pings, and just constant digital connectivity are inherently good for us. We assume that if we're always talking, we're always collaborating. But what if that constant stream of communication is actually the very thing destroying your team's collective intelligence?
Harvard Business School professor Ethan Bernstein perfectly captures the emotional tone of our current reality here. Historically, work had natural pauses. You'd meet, you'd go back to your desk, you'd work alone, but technology has pushed us into this always-on ethos. We are relentlessly connected, and as Bernstein points out, that constant presence actively drains our ability to focus and do truly deep, meaningful work.
For decades, we've all bought into this myth of the wisdom of the crowd. It's the theory that maximizing transparency and constant communication will naturally yield the most brilliant ideas. And hey, the logic seems sound, right? The more eyes you get on a sticky problem, the better the solution. But the data tells a completely different, much darker story about what actually happens when we constantly watch each other work.
The actual hidden villain destroying your team's ability to solve complex problems is a phenomenon called premature cognitive convergence. It's a mouthful, I know, but here's what it means. It happens when everyone is constantly connected. Instead of exploring diverse, weird, or truly novel ideas, team members just rapidly copy the most dominant or earliest decent idea they spot on the shared channel. They completely abandon independent creative exploration.
And that leads directly to disindividuation. When we constantly rely on shared version control tools or real-time documents, and the technical system remembers every single step for the team, it actually bypasses our own internal cognitive cycles. We literally stop figuring things out for ourselves and just kind of homogenize into one giant, unthinking hive mind.
To scientifically prove this was happening, researchers from Harvard Business School and Boston University undertook a massive study. They looked at 600 small groups of people who were all tasked with trying to solve a highly complex, multivariable business problem. They wanted to see exactly how different levels of communication impacted the final results. They set up this incredibly suspenseful 17-round experiment, assigning these subjects to one of 3 specific communication states. Group 1 was completely isolated with 0 peer interaction. Group 2 was always on with constant interaction. And Group 3 had intermittent interaction, meaning they only saw their teammates' solutions after every 3rd round. Okay, let's look at the results.
The results exposed the extreme flaws of both setups. Isolated teams produced massive creative variation. Some absolutely incredible ideas, but a lot of terrible ones too, resulting in a very low average quality. Meanwhile, the always-on teams had a decent average, but absolutely 0 variation. They all just converged on the exact same mediocre solutions.
But here is the massive twist in the data. The intermittent groups achieved something truly incredible. They managed to combine the consistently high average quality of the always-on teams with the extreme peak innovation of the isolated teams. By simply taking structured breaks from each other, they avoided the drawbacks of both extremes entirely.
Section 1. The Goldilocks Point, Finding the Just Right Rhythm.
Okay, so here is probably the most fascinating discovery from the whole study. We usually assume collaboration helps the low performers copy the smart kids, right? And in constant interaction, high performers actually just ignore their peers because everyone is doing the exact same thing. But with intermittent interaction, the high performers actually learn and improve too. When they're finally exposed to the diverse, weird ideas their peers came up with in isolation, it sparks entirely new breakthroughs. This specific dynamic creates a transactive attention system, which is characterized by temporal burstiness. That essentially means long periods of quiet, low interaction, suddenly punctuated by an intense, rapid-fire period where everyone is highly responsive and working together. The research shows that this specific rhythm directly predicts higher innovation and collective intelligence in a team.
Section 2. Fact-finding versus figuring out when is always on actually good.
Now,
There is a really vital distinction here, because we aren't just saying technology is bad. If your team is in the fact-finding stage, coordinating schedules or making sure everyone has the exact same data, constant connectivity and tools like Slack are absolutely fantastic. But if you're in the figuring out stage, trying to understand what those facts actually mean and create new conceptual models, that constant pinging actively destroys the deep concentration you need.
It really boils down to this principle of deep work. High-quality output equals the product of focus multiplied by time spent in that state. Complex tasks demand a working environment completely free from the constant pinging of digital notifications. You simply cannot do deep work while jumping out of your skin every time you hear that dreaded Slack knock-knock sound.
And you know, this isn't just management theory. It's hardwired right into our biology. To process inputs effectively, our visual cortex literally relies on a rhythmic pulsing of 10 Hz alpha oscillations. Our brains are inherently oscillatory. They're built to require continuous transitions between deep, isolated focus and collective alignment just to function properly.
Section 3. Engineering intermittent collaboration, building the architecture for deep work.
So how do we actually protect our teams and implement this in the real world? Well, organizations must intentionally design structural scaffolding. You need to build fracture planes into your workflow. This looks like dedicated agile sprints that focus a team for a set time, or hackathons that create artificial boundaries. It means utilizing team topologies to limit constant dependencies between departments, and even physical spaces like open office phone booths where people can truly hide from all the noise.
Ultimately, the whole shebang comes down to enforcing a simple 3-step intermittent rhythm. By structuring your team's day or your project cycle with these specific, predictable steps, you allow everyone to finally reclaim their focus while maintaining total strategic alignment. You do the isolated deep work, you come together for a brief, bursty synchronization to align and share, and then you immediately return to isolation to build on what you've just learned.
It really is that powerful. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Are your tools helping your team think or just helping them conform? Thank you so much for tuning into this explainer today. And hey, I highly encourage you to try turning off those notifications for just a few hours. See what you can actually figure out.